Hello world! Welcome to Learning Java, one byte at a time. This is video 25 in a tutorial series geared at bringing the wonderful wide world of Java to those with little or no programming experience. This video marks the entry point to the application we're going to be designing from start to finish, which is called the Bookr Vehicle Appraisal app. In this application, we're going to enter attributes of a vehicle. We're going to have a Blue Book value generated and also a dynamic sales ad generated from those attributes and the Blue Book value. And so before we actually get started, we'll talk a little bit about the MVC design pattern, the Model View Controller design pattern, and why this is useful. MVC follows the architecture we discussed previously, which separates the presentation layer, which is what the user interacts with, from the business layer, which is where the logic of the application is conducted, from the database layer, which is where all of the information is stored and retrieved. And one reason you want to use such a design pattern is to create what's called a loosely coupled application. Loosely coupled means that all of the pieces are not tightly integrated. That is to say that you could almost plug and play different components of the application without having a ripple effect that would be prone to introducing bugs and errors in the rest of the design. So a loosely coupled app is one that can scale very easily, be maintained very easily, and also be used as an API by other clients very easily without necessarily having to know the background or the context of what's going on. And so many good reasons why you'd want to follow an MVC design pattern, and we'll get more into detail about how that's being implemented as we approach that part of the design process. But before moving forward, I want to go ahead and just say that we're going to start with designing the very first object of this application, which is going to be the vehicle object. As we know, objects have attributes and behaviors, and we've even designed a vehicle object before, but this one is going to be a little bit more in depth. So we'll go ahead and open up our Notepad++ application, and you can see here I have already saved a file called vehicle.java. This is going to be the class for a vehicle object. Since this application uses about 15 class files, we need to make sure to put them all in the same package. So the first thing we're going to do is declare the package it's going to be part of this class file, and in fact every class file we're going to be working on from now on is going to be part of the package called Bookr. So we'll declare this as a public class known as vehicle. And in this class, we're going to give it some attributes. And so some of the attributes the vehicle is going to have is going to be the name, make, and model, as well as base cost. We're going to give it a year, a transmission, a drive. We're going to give it either having airbags or not, having ABS or not, rear view camera or not. We're going to assign it a grade. We're going to give it a value of mileage, a value of previous owners, keyless entry, premium sound, GPS navigation, a vehicle class, whether or not it has accident history, and a commission value. So we'll go ahead and start to assign those attributes as we've named them. To follow the encapsulation principle, we're going to make them private and then assign getters and setters so that other parts of our application can interact with them. Before I get too far into this, I just want to mention that all of this code, the completed project code, will be available on my GitHub page, and I'm going to put the link to the GitHub page in the description of every single vehicle in this tutorial, or every single video of this tutorial. And so if at any point your code breaks down or it doesn't seem to work, or you just want to skip to the very end, the completed project code will be available in a link in every single video. So we're going to make the name, make, and model strings because those are going to be textual descriptions. However, we'll make the base cost a double because we are going to need to operate some mathematics on that. And we'll call it base cost so that we can make it distinct from the actual Blue Book value, which is going to be the final cost. The year can be a simple integer because that's not going to need to have any math done on it. The transmission and drive will make strings because we're going to need to have those labeled as being manual, automatic, or electric vehicle. And then the drive, of course, will need to be front wheel, rear wheel, or all-wheel drive. However, the other features, such as the airbags and ABS, we're going to make booleans. It's going to be either a true or false value as to whether or not those are there. And you'll notice I'm actually being very wordy with these descriptions, and it just comes in very handy later on as these applications become quite sizable to be just extremely descriptive in how you're labeling these variables. It's better to be more descriptive than less. Right, so that takes care of all of the properties of the vehicle. So now let's go ahead and design our constructor for the vehicle object, which we'll declare as being a public vehicle. And then we're going to pass through all of these attributes because when we construct this object, we're going to need to know all of this information beforehand. That's not a string, that's a double. Just for readability, I am putting these on separate lines because Java ignores the white space. It's not going to affect the functionality at all. Right, so that should take care of all of the parameters for the object creation, and upon being created, we are going to use the this keyword to make assignments to the instance of that object being created. Every property of that instance is going to be assigned the arguments that are being passed through as parameters for the creation of that object. And I've just noticed that it looks like I have the grade in there twice, so we'll go ahead and remove one of those. This should actually be vehicle class. That's where I made the mistake. All right, there we go. All right, this is quite tedious, but it is going to be well worth it in the end. So now that we have made all of the assignments of the parameters to the instance of the creation of this object, we will wind up with a fully functional vehicle object. Now, to follow the principle of encapsulation, we have to create getters and setters for all of these attributes as well. And we'll make those public, of course, so that they're accessible from other parts of the application. And as you can see, we're not doing anything new here that we haven't done before. This is all pretty much just part of the whole tedium behind it. And of course, remember, this code will all be available through a link in the description to the GitHub for the final project. So if this is just a little bit too much for you to follow through and type with me, feel free to go ahead and just download the finished file. Although it is good practice to of course, type through these class files just so that you have the the muscle memory of doing so. And it also, of course, helps to sort of retain the information as you're following along. But again, if this is too tedious, feel free to just download that file. Notice for the Boolean getters and setters, I'm using the nomenclature is vehicle airbags and is vehicle ABS. Alright, and I do believe that was the last attribute, so now we have all of our getters and setters, and I realize that that was quite a lengthy process, but our vehicle class object is now complete. And so moving forward, our application is free to call instances to the class object to create vehicle objects and to be able to move forward with that. And so this has been quite a long video. I think we're going to call it good at that. We'll come back and we will begin to work on different aspects of the model view controller for the application. So thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful night.